The aircraft landed in pretty much a straight line, and the debris field is, I would estimate, about a quarter of a mile. So it's a very sobering situation.
NTSB investigators are combing through the wreckage of Saturday's plane crash in Lafayette and say radar shows the plane was in the air less than a minute before it came down. Questions remain after that deadly plane crash killed 5 people on board and injured 3 others on the ground. The plane crashed less than a mile away from the airport off Vero School Road in Pinhook. First responders arriving on scene nearly 8 minutes later. Witnesses say the plane clipped power lines before crashing into a nearby post office parking lot, with part of the plane bursting into flames. The pilot, Ian Biggs, and 4 passengers, Gretchen Vincent, Michael Walker Vincent, Carly McCord, and Robert Von Crisp, died in that crash. The 6th person on board, identified as Stephen Wade Burzes, is in critical condition at the hospital. The NTSB is in the preliminary stage of its investigation, now looking for clues as to why the plane went down. Chris Welty kicks off our team coverage from the crash site. Chris.
This is just the beginning of the NTSB's investigation. The full process could take anywhere from 12 to 18 months to complete. We're told they'll be looking into the pilot's experience as well as the plane's maintenance records. The NTSB will review witness video like this as they work to understand why this small 8-passenger plane crashed.
We also have the radar track from the airport radar, which will give us a pretty good idea of the flight path on the aircraft.
Investigators say the visibility was 3/4 of a mile when the plane took off, and it's up to the pilot on whether or not to fly.
We look at the person, the machine, and obviously the environment.
The plane reached an altitude of 900 feet after takeoff, but quickly started a leftward descent. Witnesses say they heard the plane circling above their apartment complex. Air traffic control immediately issuing a low altitude alert to the pilot.
Whenever an airplane descends below the minimum safe altitude, in this case 700 feet, the radar will advise the controller this airplane is below the minimum safe altitude for this sector of airspace. The controller will then say to the pilot, minimum altitude alert, climb immediately.
And as the investigation is well underway, the healing process for these families and the community is just beginning.
We work together, we play together, we have fun together, we hurt together, and we will heal together. Please send your prayers up to God and trust in His love and mercy.
The NTSB says the wreckage site should be cleared by the end of the day on Monday, and the remaining parts of the plane will then be transferred to a secure lab off-site so the investigation can continue. In Lafayette, Chris Welty, KATC TV3.
The post office near the scene is temporarily closed. You can still make deliveries, but operations are suspended for now. Customers can do retail transactions at the Bertrand Post Office. No word on how long the closure will last. And one of the bystanders who was injured during that plane crash is recovering in a New Orleans hospital. Danielle Truxillo Britt was in a car that was hit by the plane as it crashed. She's a familiar face to KATC viewers and has been interviewed several times on her journey with St. Jude. Her family says she will be hospitalized for at least 4 weeks as she's being treated for severe burns, and she could go into surgery on Tuesday. According to her family, Danielle suffered burns on about 30% of her body, mostly on her right side. Her family says she's in good spirits and remaining strong through this all. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe account to help with her medical expenses has already exceeded its goals. $20,000 has been raised thanks to donations. If you'd like to help, you can visit KATC.com for more. And the one surviving passenger on the plane crash is getting support from his church. Abby Breitenbach continues our team coverage and shows us how parishioners in Church Point are praying for his recovery.
Wade Burzes, the single survivor of Saturday's plane crash, remains in the hospital, while parishioners at his church gathered in prayer to show their support.
He will certainly be aided by his faith and by the prayers of others in his recovery.
The original plan was for a small group prayer service at this chapel here at Our Lady of Sacred Heart in Church Point. But the outpouring of support was so immense this afternoon that a large crowd ended up here at the main church.
Father Broussard says Wade is well known and a vital member of the Sacred Heart congregation.
So Wade is very active. He actually started a program here in the parish, or he brought a program here called That Man Is You. It's a program for men to better themselves as husbands, as fathers.
And it's Wade's strong faith that Father Broussard says will carry him through his recovery.
Our sadness is one that's filled with hope. And so we're sad to see this, but always hopeful that God can bring good out of it. And again, we look to the cross for that. Out of the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world, right, the death of God, came the resurrection. And so we trust that God can bring good out of anything.
In Church Point, Abby Breidenbach, KATC TV3.
Here's Eric's 24-hour forecast.